Donald Trump is expected to seek out a different kind of judicial nominee during his second term. Experts believe that Trump will seek out judges who will rule in his favor. He appointed 234 judges in his first term, but some proved a disappointment to Trump after blocking efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. Some potential names already being mentioned as prospective nominees, including solicitors general who have opposed Biden policies in court. Let's go ahead and bring in Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes and talk about the future of what the court system could look like here.
This is something that I think the Trump administration did an excellent job on when they were there before, ensuring that they had judges in perfect places that he wanted. And he's talked about that, his frustration with some of the judges that he appointed. What did he appoint? 200 and...
Doesn't that go against everything that the judicial system is supposed to be all about?
It does. It does. We're not supposed to have Obama or Biden or Trump appointed judges in terms of their thought or process or philosophy, but it kind of has morphed to that approach. I do think I have a high standard for the legal profession where I think judges will still make a decision that's based on the law. And I think to that point, oftentimes where a judge has not made a decision that Trump's liked, someone that he may have appointed, he's come back out and bashed them or said, you know what, he didn't like their decision making in those situations. So, but I do think as we become, more polarizing as a country, more divided in certain areas, I think you do have judicial system. They're human beings. They still can see the things that are happening around them, and even though they're supposed to set that aside, oftentimes they don't. Coming up, he has only 46 pre-election judicial vacancies left. That's different than the 100 pre-election vacancies he had the last time. But around the corner in 2025, 76 judicial vacancies will come up because you have some folks that are approaching retirement age. And so while he has those first 46, he'll have an opportunity within that first year to potentially nominate 100+ judges within the first year.
Will that be in North Carolina in some form?
Oh, potentially. Some of those will be across the country. We're talking about federal judges. They're either on the district or appellate level that he'll have an opportunity to appoint. These are lifetime appointments, so they can sit there forever if they want. But most of them don't want to sit there forever. And so at some point, age kicks in, time kicks in. It's undefeated, time is. And so if you have an opportunity to say, you know what, I'm done, I've served my time, I've been a public servant for 20, 30, 40 years, I want to step down. 76 will become and have an opportunity to do that in the next year.
We were just watching some video there earlier of the Supreme Court. Could that be affected in any way?
I think there are a lot of folks that think we have two specifically that could step down, and it won't change the numbers in terms of the demographics of the Supreme Court. Looking at Justice Alito and Justice Clarence Thomas, 176, 174, those two are getting to that point where, okay, am I going to make the decision that I should step down or can step down? 83 years old is the normal spot where folks are making the decision to step down. They're not quite there, but they're almost there. One name that Democrats kind of hit at and wish that would have stepped down maybe during Biden's time would have been Sotomayor. She was only 70 years old. Even though she served a number of terms, she still feels that she's committed. She still thinks she can be there and do the job accurately, but that would have been one that if Biden would have had an opportunity, he had the things lined up, Senate control, that would have had a chance to fill that seat and not left that up for opportunity for anything to happen. Health, all those things, once you start getting to that 75, 80 years old, anything could happen. And so I think there was a concerted effort to have her step down, but she's earned that right to be able to sit in that seat for as long as she wants, just like Thomas and Alito have.
All right, it's something we're certainly going to watch going into the new term for presidency for President-elect Donald Trump. Khalif, thanks.